I'm Fran Hughes, your money expert. And today on the couch, I've got a fabulous, fabulous woman who not only is a mother of three, a friend, but also she's a certified Gallup Strength Coach, co-founder and director of Speakers Institute. Welcome, Kate Cawthorn. You've got an amazing story, an amazing journey. I wonder if we could start from October 2006. Could you share with the audience what happened that day?
Sam had been involved in a major car accident. So life changed in an instant. Everything that I knew was different from that moment, and I had to adapt to a whole new way of life and not knowing if he was going to pull through or what life was going to look like for us.
It must have been tough and it must have been difficult as well, because at the time you had two children, yes? How did you get through it?
One day at a time. It was a stressful situation. We'd just bought a home a year earlier. Sam was the sole breadwinner for our family, and we obviously had mortgage repayments. I was at home with the girls, so I wasn't working, so that was a whole lot of different layers of pressure that were on top of that. So the only thing that I could do was to take it one day at a time and see how it would all play out, because we didn't know.
Could you share with us that there was one thing I learned from yourself, Kate, is that when we step into our strengths, that we are in flow. What are your strengths and how did it help you through then?
So my strengths are empathy, harmony, adaptability, developer, and intellection. So for me, the first thing that kicked in, and as it does whenever any kind of crisis situation happens, is adaptability. And so the way that works for me is to allow me to make quick decisions in times of crisis. Most likely other people around the same time are in a whirlwind of panic and all of that sort of thing, which I should have been, seeing it was my husband in the accident. Yeah. But I was able to remain calm through that, and that I attribute to adaptability and only adaptability, because I could make decisions, I could make phone calls, I could call everybody I needed to, organise the kids, get my parents up, write notes of things they had to do while I was at the hospital. All of those sorts of things I could get done because of adaptability. So that was the first thing that kicked in for me. Secondly, empathy. When Sam was awake, so he was in a coma for 6 days. I didn't know how he was going to be when he woke up. I didn't know if he'd had any head injuries or brain injuries at all. So I didn't know if he was going to be the same when he woke up. So during that first week, that was a very difficult time of just not knowing and feeling helpless and having to just kind of fill my head with all the information the doctors could give me at that point, to tide myself over until I knew how he was going to be. But then when he did wake up and I knew that he was still the same guy, who was still making jokes and being funny with the nurses, then I was able to let empathy take over and help nurse him through that, the 5 months that he was in hospital and the 1 year that he was in a wheelchair. So that really, really helped. And as your question about being in flow, so when you're operating in your strengths like that, things that come naturally to you and you don't really have to try too hard to be that way, it's just your natural way of thinking, feeling and behaving, then it's easy to step into those superpowers, I like to call them.
That's just amazing, and the story you have and the journey that you've taken since October 2006 has just been amazing. But we'll certainly share that with our audience a little bit later. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of just unpack that little bit more, and we talk about how we have that relationship with money. The four profiles, of course, being avoider, dreamer, analyzer, and initiator. Perhaps let's take time to unpack that a little bit. So someone such as a dreamer, what would maybe one or two of their strengths be?
Potentially futuristic. So people with futuristic are great at forecasting goals and visions and things for the future. Also strategic, so people being able to plan their goals ahead of time, to be able to see the paths along the journey. Ideation, coming up with great ideas. I think those are probably the main three that I would put in that category.
Fantastic. And you know, one of the things that you taught me a long time ago actually is that with every strength there is a balcony and a basement. Could you unpack that for our audience a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So balconies and basements are the good sides and the bad sides of our strengths. Everybody has them, and while we don't like to address them, they're always there. So it's important to be aware of them so that we can make sure that we are in the balcony more so than in the basement. But so some of the basements of futuristic, for example, if we're looking at the dreamer profile, would be that while you're fantastic at casting visions and looking at your goals for the long term, maybe not so great at the details of everyday life. So looking at the small, the minor things, the everyday money decisions that need to be made, as opposed to thinking about that massive goal that you've got in the future that you're working towards. You've got to make sure that you're able to work through those minor details in order to reach those goals. And that's a downside of futuristic, that people don't like to spend the time in those details. They're too busy thinking about the bigger picture.
Isn't that fascinating? I know that when I ask a dreamer, something simple as, did you receive your credit card statement this month? And what was the balance and what was the interest that you're paying on that? Chances are they probably won't know what the interest rate they're paying on it. Isn't that fascinating?
It is, it is.
And then you've got the avoider. Now, what would the avoider's maybe one or two strengths be?
Harmony, positivity. Yeah, I think that would probably be the main two that I would straight away put into that category. People with harmony tend to avoid conflict and to shy away from conflict and avoid it at all costs. So a lot of the time, unfortunately, money conversations, especially if money's a bit tight, tends to bring up tension and arguments, and a lot of arguments can be attributed to money in a relationship or a home where money might sometimes be a problem. So it's a lot easier to just avoid the conversation altogether and just hope it will go away, but it's not going to.
That's fascinating. In fact, we even unpack that a little bit more when a couple comes together. Now, there are two money beliefs that are coexisting in a relationship. And so for someone who's an avoider, for example, would probably try to avoid conversations around money, even with their partner.
Absolutely.
I would have thought so.
Yes.
And that would be a basement, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It's completely detrimental.
Now, how can we help those two money profiles with regards to their decisions around money? There are two ways you can deal with it, is either to delegate or to validate. What would you suggest around those two profiles?
Both the dreamer and the avoider. I think for both of those, it's really, really important to have somebody come alongside you that can help you to understand the importance of looking at those, for the dreamers, looking at the minute details and helping them to understand that once they have these things under control, even automated, then they'll be able to reach their goals a lot sooner. And so having the right person come alongside to show them how to do that would be absolutely beneficial for them. And with regard to the avoiders, I think it's just as simple as a conversation for them to help them understand that once everything's under control, it will be a lot more peaceful. It will be a lot more smooth sailing. They'll be able to have those types of conversations where they can dream. They can start to dream about the future because money's not scary anymore. So I think it's really important for both of those profiles to have somebody that can come alongside them and help them to see that it's all going to be okay.
Isn't that amazing? And once you kind of sit within your power and understand your strengths, you really live day to day in flow, don't you?
Absolutely.
Now, the other two are fascinating, and it's one where I relate to. The analyzer, Kate. Tell us a little bit about maybe one or two strengths of the analyzer.
Yes, so I would say number one would be deliberative. Do you know anything about that, Fran? Possibly analytical, strategic, input. There's a lot more I could put into that category, but I think those would be the main the main ones there.
Fantastic. And of course the initiator, it's that next level up, isn't it?
Yes, so those are the activators, the
Yeah.
achievers, again maybe some positivity, a little bit of strategic, but I'd say activator and achiever would be the dominant two in that category.
And what I tend to find with the analyzer is, because one of the strengths is deliberative, they might sit in a place of working out whether it's going to work, but also that stops them from actually making a decision. And compare that to the initiator, who wants to do it tomorrow and wants to look for the next best thing.
Rush out and do it without thinking about it. Yeah.
What advice would you give them around then either delegating or validating?
So I'd help the analysers to understand that they could potentially be missing out, and while they're worrying about what they're going to lose if they make those decisions too quickly, it's worthwhile pointing out to them what they stand to gain if they do make a decision. So again, it's somebody coming alongside and helping them to understand and take the fear factor out of it all. I think that's the most important thing. Even partner with a dreamer, somebody that can help you look at those goals and think,
coexist
okay,
with,
yes, it's possible. And yeah, with regard to the other category, for them, I think it's important to, again, have somebody come alongside, help them see the ramifications of jumping into things too quickly, whether or not it's signing up for that other Amex card or a new car loan or something that you've done thinking this is going to be great and I can totally do this, without taking the time to look through the responsibilities that you already have and look through what is this going to look like for me in the long term. So again, partnering with somebody that knows, or coming alongside somebody that's gifted in those areas to help you see things from both sides.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty powerful just in itself there. Now, Kate, you've had an amazing journey since October 2006. Now you're actually you're the co-founder and managing director of Speakers Institute.
Yes.
And I've been so privileged to be part of Speakers Institute and to be doing life alongside you. Can you tell us a little bit about the amazing things that you're doing in Speakers Institute?
Yeah, sure. So Speakers Institute was born really because of Sam's passion to help people get their message out into the world. So what we do here is people come in and they have a story to tell, or they think that they've got a message to share but they're just not really sure how to get it out or the first steps to take. So one of the first things that people do when they come here is to first of all determine what the message is that they want to share to the world, and then we help them understand how to package that in a way that it's going to be able to be put out into the world for the most amount of impact. So our programs here, people come and present on stage and they get critique and feedback from our coaches. They go through a whole pressure cooker situation.
But it's transformational, isn't it?
It is transformational, yeah. And we see that every time. The first program's 3 days, and people come out the other side of that completely changed and transformed. So it's really, really wonderful to be able to watch that.
And of course you have the strengths component in your program.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so every client that comes through Speakers Institute, we get them to take the strengths assessment so they can understand what their top 5 strengths are and how they work for them. It's also really important when you're putting your message together to know that you are congruent within your strengths, to know that the message that you put out to the world, people are going to be able to look at you and listen to that and know that you're authentic in what you're saying. So knowing what your strengths are and how they benefit you as an individual helps you to come across with authenticity when you're sharing your message.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm sure our community of women would love to live a life of authenticity.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Kate Cawthorn,
Thank you,
for
Fran.
your absolute brilliance today and having a conversation on the couch with me.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks for having me.